Here's the latest news. From Reuters TV, U.S., at 6:36 p.m. today.
Your Reuters News update will begin after this message.
This is Real Time Business, sponsored by EY. Here's Sam Johnson.
According to Google support, next to the VPN you want to change, tap Setting. Opening Turbo VPN.
EY America's Vice Chair accounts on geopolitical risk.
So as a CEO, I would probably be focused on three key areas. First is energy, next is supply chain, and then finally is cybersecurity.
For more insights, go to EY.com. EY providing strategy, consulting, tax and assurance services to over 80% of the Fortune 500.
And now, with round-the-clock updates from Reuters journalists, here are today's
मुझे मेरी favorite ice cream खानी है.
top stories.
Zelensky says peace talks are collapsing as the battle rages on in eastern Ukraine.
Mariupol survivors speak of the horrors they have endured.
This is Reuters Now.
Children and the elderly packed into an evacuation bus in the eastern Ukrainian town of Lyman on Friday, as Russia stepped up its assault in the east of the country. Ukraine acknowledged it was taking heavy losses in the continued attack, but said Russia's were even worse, as U.S. lawmakers pledged to move fast on a plan to send as much as $33 billion to help Kyiv continue fighting, a dramatic increase in involvement. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres left the capital Friday morning, just a day after two long-range missiles hit a residential area in the northern city, reducing buildings to rubble and killing a journalist from the U.S.-backed broadcaster Radio Liberty. A video Vera Hirik posted in March shows her on the streets in Kyiv describing the situation.
Now it's almost completely empty. Most people have moved out. Those who were unable to leave are hiding in cellars.
Though Russia is now concentrated on the two eastern provinces known as the Donbas, after having failed to take the capital, Kyiv's mayor Vitaly Klitschko reminded people at a media event Friday that the city is still a target.
It's still a dangerous place, and Kyiv is still the target of Russians. Yes, of course, the capital of Ukraine is a goal, and they want to occupy.
The bloodiest fighting and worst humanitarian catastrophe of the war have been in Mariupol, an eastern port reduced to a wasteland by 2 months of Russian bombardment and siege. President Volodymyr Zelensky praised Biden's offer of help, which amounts to nearly 10 times the aid Washington has sent so far. Zelensky also expressed pessimism over the prospect of continued peace talks, blaming public anger over what he said were atrocities committed by Russian troops. Russia began in late February what it calls its special military operation to disarm Ukraine and protect it from fascists. Ukraine and the West say the fascist allegation is baseless and that the war is an unprovoked act of aggression.
Shelled buildings, piles of rubble, and makeshift graves. This is what life looks like for those left behind in the besieged Ukrainian city of Mariupol. A horrifying reality that the international community hopes they can soon escape. Mariupol City Council estimates that more than 100,000 people are believed to be in mortal danger in the city, with many hoping for safe evacuation. For weeks, those who have not managed to leave, like Victoria Nikolaeva, have sheltered underground as Russian and Ukrainian forces battle overhead. The 54-year-old told Reuters of the moment she thought could be her and her family's last.
It's terrible. It's like films when they show the last days of the planet. The same thing happened here. We were hungry. The child was crying when the Grad shells were hitting near the house. We were thinking, this is it, the end. It can't be described. Only ones who were here have experienced it. I can't put that in words. It's horrible.
Mariupol has seen some of the heaviest fighting of the war so far, and much of the port city now lies in ruins. People here sift through rubble for their belongings, cook meals on the roadside, and stare at the charred shells of buildings all around them. Meanwhile, the bodies of those who did not survive the weeks of fighting are collected by emergency services. In the shadow of a destroyed apartment block, 71-year-old Vitaly Kurasov recounted horrors from the battle for his now devastated city.
It was a massacre. It was the scariest thing when the shells were flying overhead. Shells, rounds, and all such. You couldn't survive it. And yet we did. A shell exploded 8 meters away. I didn't manage to get to the basement until I felt the heat on my face. But whatever. Thank God it will all be okay.
Russia has denied targeting civilians in what it calls a special operation to disarm Ukraine, though aid organizations and the United Nations say they believe thousands have died. Russia declared victory in Mariupol last week, a city of around 400,000, but hundreds of civilians remain.
You're up to date. Check back later as stories develop.
This is Real Time Business, sponsored by EY. Here's Sam Johnson, EY America's Vice Chair Accounts on geopolitical risk.
So we're encouraging clients to really explicitly think about how are you identifying risk and how are you managing that? And also running scenarios so you can understand, what's happening upstream and downstream.
For more insights, go to EY.com. EY, providing strategy, consulting, tax and assurance services to over 80% of the Fortune 500.
From Fox News at 6:36 p.m. today.
Holding off a Russian advance. I'm Pam Huso, Fox News. A relentless offensive is underway in eastern Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky described it Friday through a translator during his nightly address.
The occupiers are doing everything to destroy any life at the Donbas territory. Constant cruel bombardment, constant Russian strikes on infrastructure and residential areas.
Despite the pounding, a senior U.S. official believes the operation is moving slower than expected. During a phone call today, the president of France promised Ukraine more military and humanitarian support. They ran for cover in Kansas as a series of tornadoes touched down last night.
I was just trying to figure out what the hell happened and if it actually just happened. I'm just glad to be alive.
That man in Andover cowered in his basement as the upper floors of his home were torn apart. Dozens of buildings are damaged or destroyed, and thousands of homes and businesses have no power. One serious injury has been reported. The White House says steps are being taken to address a potential surge of migrants next month at our southern border, but officials on the ground there say they are not prepared to handle it.
If Title 42 expires, there's no way the city of Eagle Pass we're not equipped for that. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the help from the federal government. We're just not ready for it.
Yolanda Rahman is the mayor pro tem in Eagle Pass, Texas. Title 42 is a public health order that was put in place by former President Trump at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. It allowed officials to turn away many asylum seekers. America's listening to Fox News.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
I'm Ben Domenech, Fox News contributor and editor of the Transom.com daily newsletter, inviting you to join a conversation every week. It's the Ben Domenech Podcast.
Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com.
A dramatic trial leads to a guilty verdict in Idaho, where a former state lawmaker was accused of raping an intern.
The case dates back to March of last year when the 19-year-old legislative intern had dinner with then Republican State Representative Aaron Von Ellinger, who testified in his own defense, describing what happened at his apartment after dinner as consensual. Prosecutors say he left his gun on a bedside table as he forced himself on the intern. She attempted to testify during the trial, but left the witness stand, telling the court, "I can't do this." The nurse who performed a rape exam had a lump on the back of the victim's head when trying to pull away during part of the assault. The 39-year-old Von Ellinger was handcuffed after the verdict and could face from 1 year to life on the felony rape conviction. Lisa Brady.
Trafficking conviction will stand in New York.
Judge Allison Nathan denied Ghislaine Maxwell's request to toss out her sex trafficking convictions, noting a jury found her guilty after considering witness testimony and documentary evidence. She did find 3 counts overlapped, however, and has condensed Maxwell's convictions down to 3 counts in all. Earlier this month, Judge Nathan denied Maxwell's request for a new trial based on juror misconduct. One of the jurors who found her guilty of sex trafficking had not filled out the jury form properly to indicate he'd once been the victim of sexual abuse.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. Maxwell, the former girlfriend of financier Jeffrey Epstein, faces several decades in prison. An unprecedented penalty against a Major League Baseball player. Trevor Bauer, a pitcher for the LA Dodgers, has been given a 2-season suspension without pay for allegedly violating the league's domestic violence and sexual assault policy. Bauer is accused of beating and sexually assaulting a woman last year. He denies it. Pam Puso, Fox News.
Precise, personal, powerful. It's America's weather team in the palm of your hands. Get Fox weather updates throughout your busy day, every day. Subscribe and listen starting May 2nd at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Today's show at 5:03 p.m. today.
We're going to start with the news right now. We begin with that check of the headlines at this half hour, and we start with the news out of Ukraine. The United Nations is working frantically to broker an evacuation right now of those civilians inside the besieged city of Mariupol. City officials there posting new video of Ukrainians trying to keep Russian forces at bay as gun battles rage in the streets around a steel plant where hundreds are trapped, including at least 60 children. Meantime, Ukrainian forces also fought to hold off Russian attempts to advance in the south and east. A senior U.S. defense official says that Moscow's offensive is going much slower than planned.
And in Alabama this morning, police are searching for 2 people, a murder suspect and a corrections officer. Officials say Officer Vicky White left a county jail on Friday morning to take the inmate to court, and they have not been seen since. The inmate, Casey White, is a suspect being held on a capital murder charge, and police say he is believed to be a serious threat to the public. Now, this is an important note. The 2 are not related, though they do share the same last name. The sheriff's office urged people to call 911 if they spot the pair, but not to approach them.
All right, now to baseball, and it is what every little leaguer dreams of. Let's take you to the diamond. Atlanta Braves outfielder Travis Demeritte hits a sharp line drive to center field. The Rangers outfielder Adolis Garcia misjudges the ball. You see it bounce? Watch that wild deflection again, right? Demeritte keeps buzzing around the bases, and here's what happens next.
Look at Demeritte flying around second on his way to third. Walsh is going to wave it. Here he comes around third. Relay throw is headed to the plate. He's safe. Demeritte circles the wagons.
That's what every 11-year-old will be trying to do this weekend. That's a rare inside the park home run. The round tripper helping the Braves race by the Rangers 6-3.
Impressive one there.
From CNN News Briefing at 7 a.m. today.
Hello, from CNN, I'm Afol Madike with the 5 things you need to know for Friday, April 29th. Russian troops have shelled an important railway hub and supply line for Ukrainian forces in the country's east. That's according to a new video CNN has geolocated and verified. A railway bridge located along a highway between 2 Ukrainian cities